Hello everyone, it's Oliver Harper here and I'm back with Rob Hill for another audio commentary, and this time it's on the 1987 masterpiece RoboCop. This podcast is not going to be a fact overload. This discussion will be more about our love for the film. The recent documentary series RoboDoc, which is an amazing deep dive on the film and is worth seeking out for all those juicy facts on the movie. You can find it on Blu-ray and it's available to stream on Prime. So Rob, are you ready for some RoboCop?
I'm always ready for RoboCop.
Good to hear. Okay, folks, this is the director's cut, and if you wish to sync it with your own copy of the film, put the timestamp to 0 on your Blu-ray or NTSC DVD and press play now. Now, Rob, when did you first see RoboCop? Was that something you rented or something you found on tape later on, like, you know, you could buy it, or did you watch it on TV?
I have a guilty secret to reveal here. I've actually never seen RoboCop. No, I got it weirdly. I got it as a bootleg, which
really,
this is back in the day when I don't think I even realised bootlegs were wrong. I think I was 10, and we were on holiday in Thailand, and we went into a video rental shop. And it turns out it wasn't a video rental shop. It was a video. They were just like, oh, no, you don't need to bring it back. It's fine. So I didn't really. It was just out in cinemas, I think, and it was a pretty ropey quality copy with subtitles on the bottom in English, hard of hearing subtitles, so you get all the detail as well. And I watched it. I watched it till it was dead, basically, and then I obviously bought the proper video as soon as I could, and I was never going to be able to go to the theatre to see it anyway because it's an 18. No one was diddled out of any money there, but I did manage to get my dad sweating on the way back through customs. That was the highlight.
I mean, RoboCop, you know, the 18 rating is still justified. You know what I mean? There's no way this could be declassified to like a 15, like the Terminator. But yeah, I saw this as I think I told a couple of times over the years. My older sister Emma, she purchased a film when she must have been like 14. So I don't know how she blagged that. Which is always cool, you know what I mean? My sister bought RoboCop. You know, for me, I wouldn't imagine she'd be interested in something like that. And my dad kind of must have known about RoboCop and its violence, because Oliver, you're not allowed to see this movie. I was like, okay. So, but I watched it in the morning before school, and my parents, you know, completely unaware, and I put it in and then watched the first 20 minutes, maybe less, where you see Alex Murphy get blown apart, and I was just like shocked, you know, how violent it was, and I was just like, I didn't dare watch it for a while, you know what I mean? And obviously it's going to happen, obviously during the course of this commentary we're going to see that, and it still kind of haunts me in some way. It's kind of maybe I shouldn't have seen that. And it's kind of funny, the stories you hear when this film came out, because in America the rules of the R ratings that a parent could take their child to go see RoboCop, you know, and they were like, oh, it's amazing, and I was just like, well, I couldn't fathom taking an 8-year-old or less to see RoboCop, you know, if I had a child and they wanted to see it. I don't know, maybe wait a bit longer, but I know some of my friends who have children and have watched RoboCop, I haven't been that kind of, you know, shocked by it, or I suppose they may have seen something that's kind of far worse over the years, I don't know, online and stuff, but I still think it has a very strong kind of visual kind of moment where it seems very believable.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my foray into RoboCop, was seeing that, then going back into it, and then once he becomes RoboCop, it just becomes his comic book movie, which still has the violence there, but it's so much more kind of, you know, over the top, and I suppose kind of less kind of scary for on a visual level compared to the opening, which is kind of, as Paul Verhoeven said, it's kind of like American Jesus. It's him being killed and he gets resurrected as RoboCop. But yeah, so this kind of, weirdly, I'm always least familiar now as I got older with the opening of the film than I am with the rest of the movie, because I was like, I'm not watching that bit. That bit's horrible, you know. But yeah, that was kind of my window into it.
It's funny, isn't it, how it's still got this power psychologically on our generation, because I always end up mentioning that I watch a lot of these movies in the last couple of years with my son, because he's at that kind of age. He's 10 now. And this is on the list of things that we're not watching yet.
Okay, good. Okay. You've been a sensible parent, Rob.
I think outside of, I mean, we've watched horror, we've watched The Shining, we've watched Nightmare on Elm Street, we've watched a bunch of things that are, you know, probably quite inappropriate for a 9-year-old at the time, but this is different, because it's not just the gore and the violence, it's the nature of the violence and the themes as well. There's a I don't know, there are very adult and intellectual themes, and I think it's one of those movies that you can appreciate on a superficial level, but there's a lot more to understand about it, I think, and I think you benefit from that understanding. I think it can be a tough watch for a young kid.
I think just the poster design and how RoboCop looks is so enticing to a child. You know, because there's, you know, that was the joke, really, wasn't it? Because when they'd written the script in, I think, 1985, and just passing it on to various directors and studios, they all thought it was laughable because the name RoboCop.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, all now know that Paul Verhoeven kind of scoffed at this script and went, I'm not interested. And his wife told him to reread it, and she saw something in there, and he kind of saw the themes in it and how it should play out and his own version of it. And this is what we got, you know, a great sort of an outsider looking at America in that sort of Reagan era, and he really knew how to sort of satirize it all, and also play it straight as well. You've got a great kind of such a fantastic balance throughout the film, where you've got this kind of serious kind of movie that's kind of also a comic book, but also a satire and a comment on what was going on in that decade.
And the perfect marriage of subject and director as well, for so many reasons, not just because Verhoeven's got exactly the right sort of sense of humour and approach to excess and all that kind of thing, but as you just mentioned, I think absolutely key to this is that it's not directed by an American. I don't think it would ever have worked with an insider making a film like this. And he's talked about this a lot himself, that he sort of fed his experience of America into it, because he hadn't spent much time in the States before he moved there to make this movie, and he originally arrived without his wife and kids, so he was just holed up in a hotel room, and he said he was watching he says this in a bunch of interviews, doesn't he? He was watching the Challenger shuttle disaster, and every minute it'd be interrupted for ad breaks selling you washing detergent. And he just couldn't get his head around it. It was just bizarre to him. And of course, it can't, I mean, that outsider view is integral to this.
Oh, for sure. And this is all kind of the comment on the sort of boardrooms discussions and how they think they're in control, was like Ed Neumeier's discussion or kind of reflection on the studio system and the Reagan government. This whole sequence coming up, you know, where I think Ed Neumeier sort of said he envisioned in these meetings just a robot walking into the meeting and shooting everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he's sick of them, you know.
He says in is it Flesh and Steel, the old documentary? He says that he kind of wrote Kinney, this victim here, as a mirror of himself. You know, a young executive. He's an executive, but he's a very junior executive. And I think he was sort of theorising that in time, Kinney might have realised this wasn't a world he wanted to be a part of. But of course, he gets blown up before that, doesn't he?
Well, because the funny thing is, when I did In Search of Last Action Heroes, where, you know, we interviewed Ronnie Cox, and you know, he's talked about, and also Paul Verhoeven, they talked about the rating of this movie, where it was given an X, you know, and so they cut it down to make it an R, but actually it made the violence far more, you know, intimidating and threatening and scary, because you're then seeing just glimpses of something that's horrible, where if you play it out for longer, it's funny. So that's what I love about Paul Verhoeven, is that he just loves seeing the violence, right? But plays it up so much it becomes comical and quite funny and entertaining. Because, like an example, Total Recall, when Arnold used that guy on the escalator as a shield, he just gets completely destroyed. It's so
world's
funny.
most explosive squibs as well.
Oh, I love squibs in films, you know what I mean? And this one, obviously, because they play out the scene a bit longer in this director's cut, you can see the squib pack fall down his back when it cuts to the camera behind the guy, and you can see it fall down slightly, so it kind of reveals, you know, because he got an absolute battering, the actor did. So many bruises. And let's do it again. Take two.
Well, they had to keep reshooting it, didn't they? Because that sequence was shot by John Davison, wasn't it? The producer. It wasn't actually Verhoeven who shot that sequence. and of the machine gunning of Kinney's death, and he kept on giving him the footage, and Verhoeven would just come back saying, it's great, but we need more blood, more violence, more. And they did it 4 or 5 times before there was enough gore and violence for him.
I mean, because the voice of Ed 209 is John Davidson, isn't it?
Yeah,
Which is, something I didn't know till I think one of the earlier documentaries, and RoboDoc would kind of exploit that a little bit more and get him to do the voice, I believe. I always come back to seeing the technology on the side there, what they're actually using for playback. It doesn't look like a laser disc or anything like that, but they have, in this film, they had the introduction of DVD, I suppose.
A proto DVD, yeah.
Yeah, or video CD, back in the day.
There was meant to be a lot more technology around them here, I think, wasn't there? Verhoeven had originally wanted all kinds of beeping lights and computer panels and so on, but...
That's right, yeah. I think they mentioned having more TVs around, but I think they just kind of put them on one side of the wall, which kind of operates. As you see, always saw at expo events back in the 90s, loads of CRT, or one big projection thing kind of broken up into regular TVs. So play one image, right? I mean, this is the Go Motion stuff on here. Is it the first? I think maybe it was Dragon Slayer that used Go Motion technique. Phil Tippett sort of device where it's kind of the sort of blurring of frames, so it doesn't seem so stiff, but it still gives you, it's a bit more kind of smooth in its transition. But it's kind of it still demonstrates though when we saw do the remake of RoboCop, everything's kind of CG. Ed 209 is no longer threatening. Once it's with all kind of things we've seen over the years where the move away from stop motion to computer effects. The stop motion thing, especially with robots or skeletons, when it's stop motion, it's really creepy.
Yeah. You can always tell if there's a physical presence. Well, maybe not nowadays, but yeah. Aside from that, they have this slightly unworldly quality because of issues like the lack of motion blur or false motion blur or whatever, and scaling issues and so on. Always creates just a slightly otherworldly and intimidating quality.
That gun there he's holding is the original gun, wasn't it? Intended for RoboCop, but
yeah, the Desert Eagle.
It looked too small, didn't it, in his hand? So it made this kind of massive kind of. What's it? Ed Newmeyer said it should look like a coffin.
Yes, yeah. The upright sort of facing edge of the end of the barrel. We wanted it to be vaguely coffin shaped, and it kind of is coffin shaped on RoboCop's gun.
Was he when they put out the RoboCop toys? I think what was it called? That's Delta Police or something like that. In the 80s, I can't remember the little subtitle for the toy line. But the gun looked like a giant Toblerone. It just goes on forever. That's it. He usually cuts there. Then it's like, you see when he gets his knee though. That's the worst part. Oh, Christ! It just becomes funny, doesn't it? Just because it's so outrageous.
I love Dana Hurley's reaction then as well. It's just he's completely unfazed by it. It's just disappointment. Dick, I'm very disappointed.
Or Gavin O'Hurley, his is it Gavin? No, what's his name?
Dan, I think.
Dan. His son Gavin, is in Death Wish 3, and he plays Brad in Superman 3.
Oh, does he really?
And he's in Willow as well. I think Never Say Never Again. He's in the guy who has to wear the contact lenses to break the nuclear.
Way. That's his son, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Here's another great. I mean, this movie is just full to the brim of the best character actors around, often playing against type as well.
Yes,
but Dana Hurley is one of those actors who really should have done more. We should know him from a lot more than we do.
Well, yeah, because outside of this, I think most people would know him from The Last Starfighter.
Yeah, and Halloween 3 as well.
Yes.
And in my case, Murder, She Wrote.
In Last Starfighter, he's kind of a proto sort of Crichton. The way his mannerisms and his laugh is very Crichton.
But you don't, because he's under all that makeup. You don't necessarily. I never made the connection. These are two of my favourite films as a kid, and I had no idea it was the same guy.
I mean, Ronnie Cox, he was a guy who was best known as sort of a lovable kind of actor, and he played softer roles and stuff. And in Belial's Cop in '84, he still, comes across as very nice and, kind of understanding to Axel Foley's kind of issues, and seems to sort of bend around to his way of thinking very quickly. Where he is like a mean sort of guy. He's
absolutely terrifying.
It's like a evil version of Reagan, more evil than perhaps some may believe. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, he was kind of typecast a little bit by Deliverance, wasn't he? I know he was frustrated by that, by always being offered the sort of folksy nice guy roles, and he wanted to get his hands dirty. He's also a semi-regular on Murder, She Wrote. He's played at least 3 different characters.
Oh, I see. I love how this film, because there's only a number of skyscrapers they can utilise to give it this kind of futuristic look. So they have to shoot in certain places and have the camera looking up to sort of give you, so you can see that skyline there. Because I think the car chase coming up is made up of 3 different shoots, I think, to make everything kind of match.
Yeah, they ran out of time, I think, didn't they? And for the chase, and it's bits of it are shot by Verhoeven, bits of it are shot by the second unit guy. But yeah, they shot here in Dallas, didn't they, for the modern buildings, basically, having looked at Detroit and thought, well, that'll be great for the run-down parts, but we need some futuristic-looking skyscrapers and so on.
They burnt the fucking money. Can you fly, Bobby? I love all that stuff.
How many great villains does one movie need as well? I mean,
oh my god, yeah. Everyone is like so memorable. It's crazy. You know, not even a superhero film has villains that are this memorable. You know, and these superhero characters or villains have been around for decades, where you just throw in, you've got Clarence Bardigo, you think, oh my god, he's just so memorable. And an actor, again, who's like super nice and polite, and he's complete opposite of the character they've written. You know, and that's the thing, you know, it's, often you get, if you get these good actors, great characters and great dialogue, they can really just amp it up.
And actors love playing against type as well. They
do, yeah.
They always seem to want to do, and they love playing villains if they're used to playing good guys in particular.
Yeah, so it's a challenge, isn't it?
I mean, I know Kurtwood Smith. I think it wasn't the happiest of shoots, was it? But I think I remember seeing Kurtwood Smith somewhere saying that this was the best summer of his life.
Yeah, because they always felt kind of sorry for Peter, because he would be stuck in a suit for so long to try and get in, get out of it, and they'd be going off partying and going drinking as groups, and they'd sort of that sort of camaraderie they had the characters have on screen is kind of also shared off screen.
Yeah, and a shared hatred of Paul Verhoeven as well, which is probably important.
I mean, that's, you know, making a movie in America as well in the middle of the summer. God, you. Insane.
And a visual effects heavy movie. There's visual effects. Yeah. There's you know the RoboCop costume and all these things. Deceptively can create a lot of problems for a director.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't think Verhoeven necessarily has quite the right temperament to be dealing with difficult shoots.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore him. I think he's one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, and I think he's hilarious to listen to. I could listen to him talk all day.
Oh, definitely.
You won't find a lot of people who didn't fall out with him on this movie.
I suppose he kind of pushes you to the edge, doesn't he, to your break, you know. But also, you know, him screaming and shouting and not being particularly polite, perhaps, you know. You know, when you know, I think the famous scene, you know, with the when he says bitches leave, you know what I mean? He just refers to them as bitches. The bitches, you go over there, you stand there. You know, it's just, you know, so funny. That's the thing about RoboCop, isn't it? That factory setting is such a common trait now of RoboCop, because all the sequels will feature like a factory. It's kind of run down. Like number 2 would have one, number 3 would have one. You know,
it's part and parcel of the thematic undercurrent, isn't it?
It's a mix of the old and new.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the fact that Detroit is experiencing these extraordinary social and financial problems is such a big part of it, and at the end of the day, that it's what we always see is the bad guys hanging out in the rundown area, and the scumbag bad guys, and then the sort of boardroom bad guys in the shiny skyscraper area.
That's right. Mind if I zip this up? You know, when he knocks her down, he just points and laughs at her. It's one of the greatest laughs.
Yeah,
in the film, you know. It's unfortunate that the helmet and the padding gives Nancy Allen no neck.
It's not a flattering role, is it, for someone who'd... Well, I mean, again, it's playing against type, so she loved it, but someone who had generally been cast as not necessarily a good girl at all, but a sexy girl often.
Yeah, sexy bitchy girl, you know.
and
like
yeah,
Kerry, you know what I mean? So,
cutting her hair short and wearing this completely unflattering costume. And
I love how the cigarettes like yellow in this, like the rolling, the sort of what do they call it? I can't remember now.
licorice,
Is it licorice? Is it?
you get licorice rolling papers, don't you? That sort of colour. I'm starting to feel slightly nervous because I know what's coming.
Yeah.
Not a lot of films have that kind of effect on me these days, but
Yeah, because it's the director's cut as well. Because as a kid, there was this book, a movie book, and I don't know if it's actually specifically on RoboCop. I think it's about special effects or things like that, makeup effects. And there was a shot in it with Peter Weller standing there missing an arm. And as a kid, you don't see the arm get blown off in the theatrical cut, but this one you do. And I always kind of, where's that come from? And also it's on the uncut version, which is most people would discover when a Criterion collection would put it out on Laserdisc and then eventually DVD. And
do you not see the actual? I'm sure the versions I've always had have had a very brief shot of the arm kind of almost exploding, basically.
you see the hand explode off, don't you, in a minute?
Oh, is
and
that what I'm
then
thinking of? Yeah.
boom, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then, but it's kind of when they say turn around, and then they shoot his arm off. And
Well, after he stood up.
yeah, it's because it's just so. This whole scene again is played extremely straight, right? And it's like so intimidating. It's like you're surrounded by guys, you've got no weapon now, and they're all like pure evil. These guys, and it's just that you can, I don't know, in some way you can sort of imagine yourself in a similar scenario, and you can't get out of it, and you fear the worst, and the worst comes to him. And also he doesn't actually die. You know what I mean? Even though he's blown to bits, his arm's blown off, his hand's blown off, whatever. He's been shot on the head. His heart's still beating, and that's when they take him to the emergency room, and you're seeing the last bits of him, in that body till he gets resurrected into the machine. But because I also mentioned earlier, I saw this as a kid, and also being, there's the visual elements that's stuck in my mind. And sometimes I'm scrolling through Twitter, and someone just like puts a gif of his hand getting blown off. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, it's
I just had my breakfast.
that is not on, man.
We sound like a bunch of like whining old ladies, but I think it's such a. If you saw this as a child, especially when you're kind of in that UK environment where you're kind of hidden from a lot of horror stuff, and my parents were a little strict on what I could see, and when you see this, despite them warning me not to, it's kind of, my mistake.
I have a real thing about limbs getting blown off and cut off as well. I don't know why. It's only come to me in later life, but I find it really quite disturbing watching someone's arm getting blown off now. Whereas as a kid, I don't think I'd really have.
I don't like seeing things where people's eyes get gouged or throats cut or wrists cut, because you get a sense of like, oh, I can feel that. You know what I mean?
Eye gouging gets me a treat.
It's just like Peter Weller is acting it so well, like the shock and the screaming, and it's like nothing's funny about this. This is all just brutal.
He committed to this role like you wouldn't believe, though, didn't he? It's from demanding everyone call him Robo to taking it entirely seriously all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously, I think many people on set probably thought it was very pretentious of him to be everyone to refer to him as Robo, but I think, I think everyone in this film, delivers such an incredible performance. But I think the weight of the movie is on Peter's shoulders, because if he didn't sell the idea of being in this suit and moving the way he does, it just wouldn't work. You know what I mean? You couldn't put Arnold in the suit, or put like another actor who was like slim in it, and for them to say, "Oh, it's going to work because they're going to do this and that." But Peter had thought about it. Got a mime involved, and he studied martial arts and realised that the suit wouldn't work at the time because it was so restrictive. So you had to move, instead of moving like as it was like a very smooth way, you had to sort of move like a bird, to make it work.
Yeah, weirdly, I forget the name of the mime he hired now, but
is it Moni Akeem or something like that?
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Something like that.
And he recommended oh God, what's it called? Ivan the Terrible, an old Russian like masterpiece of the Russian early cinema, Eisenstein film. He recommended he watched that because the guy who plays Ivan the Terrible, and if you see it, it's really noticeable. The way the character moves is so similar to the way he does.
Mm.
It's a real trauma team, isn't it? Apparently.
That's right. Yeah.
Again, that's just Verhoeven going for realism in an entirely unrealistic concept.
Yeah, I mean, even that corridor, the lighting and how basic it is, but it's also very, I don't know, it also fits within the world of Total Recall, when he goes to the Recall Center, you've got a kind of similar vibe of, how things are designed and played out. I mean, it just seems...
and Starship Troopers as well, actually. It's a common thing. But I've always found the lighting design in this quite interesting because it's not very cinematic in a way. It's almost like it's lit like a TV show. There's all this, just like the whole space is just flooded with fluorescent light all the time. There's no real, it's not very sci-fi. And it's not very. And considering Verhoeven was so inspired by Blade Runner, that was his original hope, wasn't it, to make everything look like Blade Runner. But there wasn't the budget. He was told he's got the choice of having the costume for the robot or it can look like Blade Runner. You can't have both.
Oh, right.
And because of problems they had lighting that costume, with their reflections bouncing off everywhere, they ended up just having to have these sort of flat fluorescent lights above it. And it gives it a really interesting and unusual look. It works with this, I don't know, a future in which the soul's been taken out of society in general. It kind of works like that.
I said the great DP of RoboCop 2. I mean, he did a lot of horror and things like The Fly, but he said he lit RoboCop like a car.
Yeah.
So he knew how to do it and to make it. I mean, he does look better in number 2, despite the color change. But I think how he's lit is far more. I mean, he looks more like a product. A slick product. Or number 1, you can kind of, I mean, yeah, it's still a product, but it's all kind of, it's the use, the choice of lighting gives it a kind of different look,
So they argued back and forth for ages over that 10 seconds of black there, didn't they? I mean, Verhoeven wanted 20 seconds and silence or something, and they ended up with 10 seconds of black with 5 seconds of silence or something.
Yeah.
The producers I think people at Orion were concerned that the audience would think the movie was over and get up and leave.
Yeah, I suppose you've got to give it a little bit of breathing space for him to come back online, as it were. Shit! When he's I love that little moment. Those glasses are so big. It's like Timmy Mallet style glasses.
It's so hokey, this stuff, isn't it? But I've always thought that the way that drill comes down, but it somehow it works, and there's some great little moments of humour from Miguel Ferrer in this scene as well. I love the clicking of the fingers and can he hear me and lose the arm, all that business.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it's got that sort of great sort of interlaced image, isn't it? Like a CRT, but pushed a little bit further. You know what I mean? Just applied over optically.
They've got all the technology in the world to create this robot, but the cameras in his eyes are like 1970s TV standard.
240p, isn't it, or something?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So Rob, did you ever see the version of RoboCop that was cut? That was for swearing. They redubbed it over.
I did. I had it recorded off the TV at one point. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, it must have been 94, maybe 95, because I swear ITV had played the film at 8 p.m. on a Saturday, and I was like, what? RoboCop at 8 p.m? That's a bit early, isn't it? And then you're watching it, and then obviously swear words get changed, and it's a hilarious kind of like, once I even called him Airhead, you know what I mean? And instead of like, you bastard, they calls him a blugger. I was like, I don't know what a blugger is. But the bit when they shoot Alex Murphy, they literally fire like 1 or 2 rounds and go, damn, I'm out of ammo. I was like, what? It's like the death is completely cut, and nothing happens.
Same with the bit I always remember is when Emil gets splattered at the end when he's melting.
Yeah, he walks out the way, doesn't he?
Yeah,
alternative shot.
Boddicker kind of swerves the car and misses him.
Yeah.
And he's like, what the hell?
It's interesting that they knew that some things would be cut for TV, thus they shot alternatives, right?
Well, I think I've read somewhere that they shot that that alternate take in case they had trouble with the MPAA.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Which they did in the end, but they managed to they stuck to their guns on that one.
Well, they definitely did the same on Ninja Turtles. They shot alternative takes to not feature nunchucks. You know what I mean? So they knew it would be cut.
I suspect it happens more than we realise, but they're not going to publicise it because it's going to encourage the MPAA to lean on them to use the alternate take. So
that's a good point, Rob. Good point. I do love that little introduction there. You know, the TV monitor on the left, you just see a little glimpse of Robo. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I love this bit here. And the guy's like, "What is this shit?" And everyone just like piles in, running around just to get a glimpse because they see him again, but it's through frosted glass. It's just the sound, that doof, doof, sort of sound. And my friend used to be able to do a good impression of RoboCop sound effects.
Yeah, I used to know someone who could do a really good RoboCop.
There's always one mate who can do it. He just takes it a little bit too seriously as well. It's like, okay.
But this was a great idea, this introduction. I'm not sure. I don't know. Was it Paul Verhoeven's idea or?
I believe so. It was to hold it back.
Yeah,
as long as possible.
If you reveal it all in one go, apart from building the expectation and so on, if you reveal it all in one go, especially in this lighting, you do run the risk of the wrong reaction.
Yeah, and also they try and avoid shots from RoboCop, like from behind, so you see his bum because his bum's like super wobbly. You know what I mean? He's got a big ass. It's like
yeah, Rob Bottin did an extraordinary job on this costume, but the bum is not right, is it?
No. I mean, yeah, Rob Bottin. I mean, this whole, like, wasn't it supposed to be sort of inspired by Fritz Lang's kind of Metropolis and the robot from that and a bit of C-3PO, or, it's kind of a mix of things. But also, the early concepts were Judge Dredd, and it kind of boils down to that Ed Neumeyer had been reading a lot of Judge Dredd and took a lot of elements from that, especially with Ed 209's lines and Robos,
And he gave Verhoeven a load of Judge Dredd comics, didn't he, to read as background?
Yeah. I think that's kind of been unfortunate for Judge Dredd in terms of kind of penetrating the American market because, he's now late to the game, wasn't he, with his own film, with Stallone one in '95, and obviously the superior one done a number of years later with Carl Urban as Dredd. But that kind of underperformed because, I think the worldwide market is a bit unfamiliar with him. But I don't know if they'd introduced. I don't know. If you introduced Dredd at this point in the 80s, it would cost a lot more because the world he lives in is far more elaborate then.
Yeah, and you had to do it. You had to do it on a big scale back then as well. Like the Carl Urban one, which is just superb, I think. You'd be hard pushed back in the 80s to have sold that screenplay. All takes place in one building. It's.
I mean, you could maybe persuade a Canon or a New World Pictures or something, to do it, but it would have been cheap as fuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm talking about Dredd. I mean, the Stallone one. I mean, despite the film being a bit smelly, it's the world he lives in is really good. I love the production design.
Yeah.
Look at that fucking gun! There's so many quotable lines in this movie.
There's a lot of Dirty Harry in RoboCop as well, which Ed Neumeyer's talked about a little bit, I think, but especially it seems like this with him having a bigger gun than everybody else. You can see that influence. But there's also a lot of I've never heard anyone talk about it, but there's a Japanese manga and tokusatsu TV series and a couple of movies as well called 8 Man. Are you familiar with that at all?
8 Man. Okay, well, I played the video game called 8 Man. That was on the Neo Geo console. It's like a platformy kind of beat 'em up thing. He's got special powers. He can run really fast and things like that. But I've never actually seen the show.
He's a cyber. I've only seen one of the movies. That's all. But I did a bit of research on it for the superhero movie book I wrote, and the backstory is almost identical. He's a cop. He's a cop. He's cornered in an abandoned warehouse by a gang of bad guys. They blow him to pieces. He's dead, but he isn't quite. So they rebuild him as a cyborg, and then he starts to develop memories of his former life, and they send a baddie robot after him to get it.
Okay, so this was after RoboCop, right?
No, this is before RoboCop.
Holy shit!
Before RoboCop, yeah. I don't think I wouldn't have thought I mean, at the end of the day, those are all quite broad ideas, aren't they? And individually, they've all been done several times. So I'm not saying Ed Newmeyer stole the idea. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he'd never heard of Ape Man back at the time. I mean, manga wasn't exactly big, was it? And it wasn't a huge manga.
No.
I suspect it's a coincidence, but it's strange how these coincidences happen. And speaking of them, we're looking now in the Dallas in the background there, Rotor, which is a movie I absolutely adore, which is also about a robot cop. Has a lot of the same features as this and is often considered a RoboCop rip-off. But it was actually shot only a couple of months after RoboCop in exactly the same parts of Dallas.
Oh, right.
It's really quite strange, the coincidence.
It could be perhaps because this script was going around for a couple of years. Or maybe a year or so, people had caught wind and gone, so I don't like the name, but I like the idea.
Yeah.
Let's take a few ideas.
Rotor's not a cyborg. He's a bad robot. He's a bad cop, so he goes loopy straight away. But it's just funny that it was shot in the same place.
Yeah. Bizarre coincidence. You just saw something, the comic he purchased, was it an Iron Man comic?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's little clues to sort of say, hey, there's sort of similarities with the, he could be an Iron Man.
All the comics you can see there are of that theme. If it's not Iron Man, it's I can't remember what they're called now.
Fuck me. He's like, also the ITV cut or the ABC cut, whatever they call it, he says, "Why me?"
Yeah.
Why me?
And this was all ad-libbed, wasn't it? I think it wasn't in the script. The fuck me. Even as a child, that bugged me. Fine, RoboCop's strong enough to bend the barrel of a gun, but the guy holding it isn't strong enough to maintain his grip on it as it's being bent. Surely.
I love the little montage here because once you've kind of established RoboCop, you can't really get any more him busting crime in a montagey way, can you? Because it doesn't really happen in 2 or 3. So
yeah,
obviously this is the brutal bit though, isn't it? Even as a kid, every man who sees this makes them wince. There is that. Have you seen that spoof of this where it's on? I think it might be on Vimeo or perhaps on YouTube, but it's a really well-made spoof of this sequence where RoboCop just goes around shooting all these dicks off all these guys.
I have seen that. Yeah,
it is so disgusting. It was just like, oh my god, these people just like ginormous prosthetic cocks getting destroyed and blown up. It's just like, oh, I can't watch it. But I love the idea of it. You know what I mean? And the sort of the people just taking RoboCop to the next level.
Yeah. This scene is also repeated in one of the strangest rip-offs. Anyone listening might be familiar with the fact that I'm kind of into my bizarre rip-offs of popular movies. And there's a fantastic Bangladeshi take on RoboCop called Shock Till Eye. And it shoots this whole scene shot for shot. But they obviously haven't got the budget or the know-how to do the little touches, like in putting the gun back in his leg and things like that. So they just steal the footage from this and insert these quick shots.
Classic stuff. I have this sort of little, again, at the background, the sign, Dallas City, the future of the city as well, city of the future. It's sort of listed around in the background to show this kind of redevelopments starting to come into place. And even by the third one, they still haven't got there, have they, with their plans. Is that in the Terminator, this sequence here? Like the same bridge, he's going under the bridge. And
I can't remember. It's used a lot, isn't it, that bridge?
Yeah, but it's used in Mystery Men, I think, as well.
These scenes are so important. This is exactly what superhero movies don't do anymore. Have just a sequence of the character doing what he's meant to do and what he was made to do in the first place. Just little things. He's not battling someone who's trying to take over the world, or he's just out doing his job for a bit. And it builds the character, it builds the city, it builds everything.
It's like Superman saving a cat out of a tree.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I think any 2 films, actually, superhero films kind of do that, actually. It's Superman the movie and Spider-Man, with Tobey Maguire's little montagey moments,
Yeah, nowadays, all the modern ones just go straight for the invading alien or monster or whatever it is.
Beam of light in the sky. Got to stop it, Really shitty gas mileage. Oh, 6,000 SUX. I want one of those.
Yeah. Only just.
There's a whole crap in it, I think. I love the sound effect when he punches him out the window.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of sound, you know.
Now this scene, that bootleg I had as a child, for some reason this scene just stopped at about this point. It just cut off, and then it starts again at the next. And I always wondered what happened.
Must have run out of tape. Put the tape in again, you know, to film it.
Or someone leant on the wrong button, and that's fine.
I also had friends with the odd pirate movie. I mean, E.T. was a big pirated film during the 80s because Spielberg took forever to release it on VHS. My friends had Ninja Turtles pirated and Dick Trace Judge Dredd as well, you know. When I was a kid, though, when someone said it was a pirated, I always just thought, "Arr, pirates!" You know what I mean? It's like they've moved on from the high seas to dealing with copies of, I don't know, Casper on VHS.
I'd be interested to know how much impact piracy has actually had on the film industry.
Yeah, it's kind of you know, if we see a movie like Avatar got heavily pirated and it makes $2 billion, you're like, well, did it really do anything?
Yeah.
You know.
But then there are times when what was that? The Wolverine movie got a work print of that was released, and it absolutely. But then, did that turn into a catastrophe because the word got so thoroughly around that it was a piece of crap because of the bootleg, or did people just not want to pay to go and see it?
Well, yeah, I remember the guys Matt Stone and Trey Parker said that pirating the show South Park had actually made them more popular. So there's kind of it's a weird way, because often people would pirate it, go, I like that, then they'll kind of watch it on TV, or they'll go buy something. You know what I mean? It's that kind of it's renting something without actually paying to rent it, I suppose.
I used to work with a guy who called it time slipping because he's going to buy it when it comes out. He just wants to watch it now.
That's a good one, time slipping. Yeah, move on now. Yeah, instead of piracy or torrenting, it's called time slipping.
These two are interesting as well. I was fascinated as a kid by the male newsreader there. I can't remember his name now. Mario Mercado.
Well, it's Casey Wong is the character.
He plays Casey Wong, yeah, but he pops up in so many movies in the 80s, and he only ever plays a reporter or a newsman. It's extraordinary. And TV shows as well. I made a note of the ones that I've seen him in. He's in Banachek, this guy. Banachek, Barnaby Jones, Mannix, Rockford, Quincy, Murder, She Wrote 3 times.
Oh,
Golden Girls. He's a reporter in Airport 79, in Scarface, in Rocky 3. And I was baffled as a child. Why? How can this guy always play the same character? It turns out he's an actual newsreader. But for some reason, he was just the entire movie and TV industry's go-to guy when they wanted a newsreader.
But what station was he actually on then, reality? Or was he just like, well, I don't need to do it anymore, I'm just being casted to play... I'm a newsreader in the world of film, you know.
And more weird trivia for those newsreaders. I don't know how many people know this, and I suspect even fewer will care unless you're British. But the lady newsreader, Lisa Gibbons, who's again is a real newsreader in Entertainment Tonight, she was married to Brian from Coronation Street.
What?
In real life. Get your head around that one.
How do they connect? So what? That's mad. Oh god, yeah, this bit's like... This is one of the early stuff bit they shot, I think.
The first scene, and it was a real proof of concept, I think. I think there were some worried people at Orion, and when they saw this, they were like, okay, we'll chill out for a bit until Verhoeven's next insane explosion.
Love the shoe buffer there on the right, on the floor. I mean, I think all toilets should look like this. A bit of neon in there.
Yeah, with a stock ticker above the urinals, just so we can keep an eye on her.
Exactly, yeah.
I guess this would have been like a really luxurious executive bathroom, as they'd call it at the time, but it does just kind of look like a slightly dingy restaurant or something.
It's kind of, a bit like Weatherspoon's toilet, you know, but without the neon, you know.
A totally different type of psychopath present.
Who cared if it worked? It's like,
he's so good. Both of these guys are just so unbelievably good.
He was I can't gentleman's name. I never get it right. Is it Free? What's his name? He plays
Miguel Ferrer.
Yeah, Miguel Ferrer. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's George Clooney's cousin, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And Jose Ferrer's son.
Yes, I can know. But he sadly passed away a couple of years ago because he was in the most recent season of Twin Peaks. I think that was the last thing he did. I think.
Yeah, he's in a bunch of good stuff. He's I don't because Alex Cox was approached to direct this.
That's an interesting take because Repo Man, kind of has that kind of set in a future but run down.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
and he'd have been as close as he got to on a career high after that. So I can see it happening. But I want to say Miguel Ferrer worked a fair bit with Alex Cox. I wonder if there's any. If Alex Cox was even attached at one point.
Cox movies. I've only seen Repo Man and Gary Oldman's first movie where he plays the guy from the Sex Pistols.
Oh, Sid and Nancy. Yeah.
Sid and Nancy, which I thought was a really good film.
Yeah.
But despite some of the questionable casting choices in that film.
Oh yeah, Alex Cox is all about questionable choices. I love him, and he's made some crazy movies. But
he has, yeah.
I don't know quite how he'd have handled this kind of budget and all these effects and so on and so forth.
I still think at the time a British director could have done a good job with the satire because the British were, especially their sense of comedy at the time, was very good at. They're very good at satire.
But this is such sledgehammer satire, though, that it's very uniquely Verhoeven, isn't it?
And also they're under the Thatcher government. I think it would have been, I suppose, I don't know, maybe a little bit a bit more on the nose, perhaps.
Yeah, but it's a lot of the same themes, isn't it? Being addressed, the privatization. I mean, Reaganomics was a big inspiration to this movie. The privatization of the police force, which is, kind of in a way happening, particularly in the States. Not the privatization of the police force as such, but the rise and popularity of like private security companies and so on. And there's a lot of privatization in the prison sector now, I think, both in the US and the UK.
Yeah.
So we're not that far away. But yeah, Thatcherism is, dealing with the same things. It's the same target.
I do love Peter's face there. He's like in the chair. Always makes me chuckle. Oh, he's gonna pop.
It's a lovely bit of editing, this sequence as well.
I talk about the editing. Yeah, I've said a number of times. This is like the film that is one of the most perfectly edited film. In which I mean by that, it's like there's no meat, nothing you can cut out. Everything in this film is needed. There's no bagginess to it.
Absolutely, yeah.
You could say in its theatrical cut form. I mean, the extra little gory bits are kind of gives a little bit more of the sort of over the top nature, but if you remove those, it doesn't affect the film in the slightest. I think it's as itself and its theatrical form is a perfect movie. It's just crazy, just Orion were just so lucky getting this. You know what I mean? Because they were a studio that was kind of up and down with its kind of financial situation, and obviously the 90s went bankrupt and resulting in RoboCop 3 going on the shelf for 2 years, and eventually coming out. But
should have stayed on the shelf.
I think for most people, they'll probably agree. Obviously, we're seeing this in high definition. It's been high definition for a number of years. Obviously, you get a 4K release. But with that high definition, you can see the black velvet over his neck and in the interconnections in his arm, like his armpits. So it always gives it away, that little velvet material. Yeah,
and I find in high definition it doesn't look quite as convincingly metallic as well.
There's certain films that you can happily watch in a sort of lower resolution, like The Terminator and RoboCop, because they're both, again, they're not big CinemaScope epics. They're very much like this. I mean, this is even though it's been cropped to 185, it's kind of a 166 kind of ratio. So it's it's very TV aspect ratio in that way. So I mean, when you saw on TV, you weren't losing much of the picture at all, and
this is the perfect aspect ratio, I think, unless you're doing. I mean, there are going to be times when you might want it to be a bit squarer, and there are going to be times when you want it to be a bit wider for a big space epic or a western or whatever. But for movies, I never understand why people shoot 235 when the subject is people moving about in a space in in a town, in a city or whatever. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Not at all, not at all. And RoboCop deals with a lot of other things where you're seeing TVs being filmed, you're seeing commercials, so it keeps everything uniform with its visual style. And you couldn't go from TV commercials, seeing OCP on TVs, and then cutting back to essentially a CinemaScope kind of movie. Well, they did with the remake again. Another blunder of that movie was they shot it in 2:3:5:1 or cropped it to that because whatever format they shot it in. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. It's like Aliens, I suppose. I mean, Alien is a big CinemaScope. Aliens is 1:5, and then 3 and 4 go back to number 1 in terms of its aspect ratio, because Aliens is kind of the odd one out with its kind of change of aspect ratio. But I think with how the story's played out, as you say, with characters moving around, it's very much focused on those group of people in a small environment. Essentially, once it entered the what's the base they're at? I can't remember the name of it now. Where all the people, with the space station, whatever it is, it's needed. But in the case of RoboCop, it's as you say, it's very much all about the characters, and it needs to be in that confined space.
This is Verhoeven's kind of surrogate, isn't it? This guy working in the gas station, he's a mathematician, isn't he, Verhoeven? He's got a degree or a doctorate or something in maths. And when he was young, looked a lot like this guy. And I think I don't know if it was deliberate casting or if he identified with him afterwards. But
I love that even that space age kind of, it looks like a till, but it's kind of also to operate the pumps. This kind of looks like tech I've never seen before. Is he studying geometry, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah.
You're a college boy or something?
How many memorable non-lines? I mean, that's not a memorable line. You're a college boy, but the delivery and the enunciation of them makes it memorable. It's that Verhoeven's slamming fist of there's no subtlety to any of that aspect of the movie.
With isn't this explosion, was caused a major complaint, didn't they? Because the guys who were like the firemen on set were just like so upset with the explosion. It was bigger than I think they'd anticipated. And you can see the stuntman who's playing Robo when he's obviously got probably that fireproof gel all over him, his face, and it's just like you see a mid shot. He's like, it all looks a bit like he's crunched up his shoulders to sort of embrace the sort of fire, or apprehensive about it. But it is such a good explosion, and it cuts to the full scale of it. But also the stunt though, when he flies off his motorbike, it's so quick.
That's proper Hong Kong stuff. That
it is, isn't it?
Speaking of memorable lines, I've got a theory that struck me last time I watched this. I don't know if it's been talked about at all, but the "Dead or Alive, You're Coming With Me" line, which
is that from Dredd though? Isn't it from Just Dredd?
I don't know. But either way, it's kind of one of the most memorable and quoted lines from this movie. But he only says it twice. The character only says it twice. Once at the beginning to the gang, and once just then. And it made me realize that it's probably not even meant to be like a killer line. It's just there in order for Emil to identify him, because Emil needs to somehow figure out that this is the guy. So it doesn't, it's the only 2 times he says it, and it's the only means of identification he has. So it's a minor point, but I suspect it wasn't really meant to be a big thing.
You just never know, though, do you? Like, writing that, you wouldn't say, oh, that's going to be a quotable line in a few years' time. You'd just be like, that's a fucking good line.
Yeah, so much of it comes down to the delivery on the day.
Yeah, it does. It really does, yeah. And also, it's a generational thing as well. So anyone of our age will probably say it to them, they'll be like, oh, RoboCop. You know what I mean? I love the computer room. I love how he accesses the database with his kind of spike transfer, which is kind of his USB, isn't it?
Yeah, this is some of my favourite RoboCop walking as well.
No, he's like...
Yeah, the head leading the rest of them.
But without the sound effects as well, it doesn't work. With all his turning and, precise movements of his head, without the sound effects, it doesn't work quite as well. Look at that lighting down there. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, as a kid, did you ever play the RoboCop game on your friend's Amiga or Spectrum or
I
Commodore?
did actually, yeah, rarely for once. I've actually got a shared gaming experience with you. Yeah,
Oh my god! Oh, there you go.
there was one. There was a side-scrolling platform game which I remember being stunned by how realistic RoboCop looked in it. And if you saw it again now, I'm sure it would look ridiculous, but it looked really convincing. I loved that game.
Because one of the games has a bonus round between levels where you have to match the faces and to get the points. So you got like in the film, and that I always remembered playing it on the Spectrum and Commodore.
What, as ever, how it was deemed appropriate to make a child's video game from this movie is kind of beyond me.
Yeah, it was a massive seller. I mean, as again, going back to like the appeal of RoboCop to kids, because they made a cartoon. They made, I think it was a Marvel Productions cartoon, I think. I always had the Marvel logo as a kid. We see Spider-Man leap, and he jumps onto the Marvel logo. And I think it was CGI they did it back in the day. But there was toys, and then there was video games, which were a massive success. And I think that, I suppose, for kids who couldn't watch the films or have access to them, their only entry was through the toys and games.
Yeah. And of course, then there's the TV series and the third film, which are essentially made for kids.
Yeah, that's kind of Orion's big mistake, wasn't it? It was because we need to make more money. Let's make this appeal to kids. And I remember the filmmakers sort of kind of umming and ahhing about that because they knew, okay, well, yeah, it could make it more successful, but also it makes it really difficult for them when it comes to action sequences. How much you've got to then change to make it fit within that rating. But a TV show, I remember, I think it was because I had cable TV, so it was on Sky One, and a bit anticipation to see that and seeing the pilot episode, and I was like, oh, it looks really good for a TV show. But once he shot a chandelier and it fell on someone's head, and then he pushed a bookcase over someone, I was like, right, okay, we're in the tame territory now, I think if you're 8 years old though and you saw the RoboCop TV show, I think you'd probably be like, yeah, it's fucking great. But when you're like 12 or 13, you've seen RoboCop 1 and 2, you're like, no.
I'd rather watch TJ Laser, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Can you do that, Dad? Love this house as well.
Yeah.
It was really good.
I love the idea of a house being sold by a computer as well, so you don't have to deal with an estate agent.
Yeah, is this the kitchen? Yeah, that's obvious. I can see that. Point out the bleeding obvious, don't they? Estate agents.
It's such a bold move, lighting everything like that, isn't it?
It really is. There's nothing kind of heavy contrasty, kind of like dark sequences. It's all very, very, very bright. You know what I mean? I've never really questioned it either. I've just kind of accepted this is how it looks, and it looks great. You know what I mean? Like, you just kind of nowadays you wouldn't shoot it like this, would they? You have to,
never.
It will be so much more kind of graded and saturated colours and bleached. Probably look like a Michael Bay movie in some way, more music video-y in some capacity, but.
I mean, this is unusual in that they've actually got some shadows and stuff going on, but on the whole, it's just the most basic approach to everything. Even the cinematography is just beautifully simple, But
it is. Yeah.
Other than often shooting him from quite low, they don't really do much with it, and it's to their credit.
Oh, this tune, man! It took forever to come out. Someone had found it, or maybe someone had published it on YouTube. Like decades after the film came out, I was like, "Oh my god, it's that song!" And you got the guy with the punk hair, because they kind of reused that look of that guy for RoboCop 3, the splatter punks, And you see, obviously, we get the great cameo of Paul Verhoeven, doesn't he? Kicks with the balls, dong. He's just like,
In my imagination, what Paul Verhoeven's doing in that brief shot is what he did for the entire shoot, the whole production. Yeah, that's how I picture him, just kind of absolutely wired and waving his arms about and leering in at people, and wasn't meant to be in there, was it? I don't think it was just the cinematographer I think Verhoeven was kind of like getting in there to show people how to dance.
That's right.
And the cinematographer just caught a bit of him, and then the editor put it in.
And it was, and what was it? In Starship Troopers, where everyone was very reluctant to strip down to the nude to do that shower scene. So Paul Verhoeven just stripped down to the nude, just like, right, everyone else, got to do it,
He probably did that anyway.
I mean, these two ladies are absolute characters when you see in RoboDoc,
Yes, aren't they? Aren't they?
They're still like they're in character. I don't know. It's like they're mad. All that coke. Bitches leave. I mean, bitches leave is like a meme itself, isn't it? Because people have made like fake like Atari games where it's got Clarence Bodiger with a gun and it just says "bitches leave." I'd like to play that game.
As you mentioned earlier, that's what Verhoeven was called, because he called everyone by their character name, didn't he? Generally speaking, and they didn't have character names; they were just bitches. So, bitches over here, bitch one there, bitch two there. Jesus.
No way you get away with doing that now. Someone would complain on socials.
He's Dutch. It's fine.
Yeah, he's Dutch. You know what I mean? It's fine. You can get away with it.
Do you see the camera in the reflection there? Never noticed.
Yes, it's like reflection. Yeah, I mean, it's because it's like handheld, isn't it? They're kind of moving around. You've got to be really quick not to catch reflections. But I mean, you probably wouldn't even see that on a monitor till you got the dailies. And go, oh fuck. Oh. I love the squibs. It's a bit like jam flying out of their legs.
I've always thought this is a bit of a sloppy move from Ronnie Cox, though, here, leaving this kind of evidence. Or
yes.
Potential evidence, I should say. I mean, anything could happen to that disc.
It's very Elvis, isn't it? To have like 3 TVs or whatever, like stacked up TVs in the background, you know what I mean?
This is cutting-edge, futuristic apartment.
In the future, people will have TVs built into pillars, and you just not actually having one ginormous TV, but multiple, like, I don't know, 21-inch TVs.
Most of them where you can't see them anyway. The owners of the house were here for this, weren't they? And apparently were a little bit upset about the nature of the scene.
Oh, really?
I think that was mentioned in the it's Flesh and Steel documentary or what it was. But yeah, they were apparently constantly on at Verhoeven to tone it down. I can't imagine how he reacted to that.
Bitches leave.
Yeah.
I always think that the exterior of the house doesn't really match the interior. I don't know. It seems like because they cover it such a small shot. Like you don't see much of. It's all like paper and it was like MDF or something flying off. Like it's like an Aussie facade they've built to blow up. So kind of.
I mean, there's a bunch. This is another rough around the edges bit. The way that so much of that Coke doesn't actually make it into the bottles. That's something I always notice. That's a really
bugged me.
Really wasteful means of. But it is rough around the edge. It's more like the original Terminator than, the slick sort of Terminator 2. It is. Yeah, man. It's a bit scuffed. Yeah.
It is. I mean, that's it. And when you saw the original theatrical trailer for RoboCop, it had the Terminator music in it.
Mm.
And it kind of works. That RoboCop could work with a synthesized kind of score, but what we get is a big orchestral thing with synthesizer moments into it, like kind of more of operating as sound effects, really, or kind of like a little musical cue of like a buzzing sound. But
and that main theme is just absolutely stonky. It's perfect because it's not, you can't quite take it seriously somehow. It's so big and so cliche, I suppose, but it's just perfectly judged.
I think Leonard Rosenbaum, who did the sequel, he hated this score. Someone quoted him, or took a quote and put it online. I was like, whoa, he hated the original score. And he said his score was a lot better for number 2. I like large chunks of the score for number 2, but it's kind of it weirdly sounds the same as RoboCop's score, but it's got like a different arrangement of it. I don't know why. It doesn't sound so radically different, but it does have the choir of ladies going RoboCop. The score's a bit weird, and it also sounds a lot like Star Trek 4 score. So.
It's Basil Polidori. How do you pronounce his name?
Basil Polidorus, I think.
Polidorus, yeah. Because he kind of had a thing around this time, didn't he, for this type of man's scores, scores that don't muck about.
No, Conan.
Starship Troopers, Conan, yeah.
Yeah, Conan's is probably his best score, I think. It's just an iconic piece where Conan's score does so much for the film, because the film has little dialogue. You can just rely on the score to really paint a picture in your head of what the film is if you listen to it by itself. I do. I mean, all the old featurettes of RoboCop always feature this sequence here. There's a lot of B-roll, isn't it, for this? They're called the drug factory sequence, where Paul Verhoeven's just going go, when it all like kicks off, He's just sweating, isn't he? Just like t-shirt on. Everyone looks like they've gone through hell. I mean, the films that always had troubled productions or difficult shoots always end up being generally really good films. Where the ones where everyone's comfortable and just like, it all turns out to be a lazy mess. I always in my mind just envision the Star Wars prequels or Episode 2 or something, where George is just sat there in a chair watching 3 monitors. Everyone's all blue screen. He's like, yeah, that's good. Yeah, do that take. Yeah, do it faster, more intense. You know what I mean? And then and everyone's just like, okay, and the film comes out and it's like boring as fuck. But
and yeah, you've got it helps as well. I think if it's a difficult shoot because the director's just difficult to deal with, because often it's just because he's so demanding, and like this is a good example. Aliens is kind of similar as well. Cameron and The Abyss, where Cameron pissed off everyone back in the day when he was making great movies.
I love these bits where the gun goes, doof, doof, and the music kicks in, and they get pulled back by a wire there, you see.
Isn't this the scene where Peter Weller completely lost it as well, because he wanted a what was it, a cookie or something?
No, it's at the factory later on where he, when he's revealed his face and Robo wants a cookie. That for the guys who made that documentary, that clip went viral. I'm not surprised, because it's such a hilarious moment of Peter again staying in character and being stubborn and wanting Oreos, and then they'd have to clean him up afterwards. Just get all the, because when everyone eats an Oreo, it gets stuck in your teeth, doesn't it? So, but the like what the gun handler or whatever, the special effects guy, just went, "You ain't having these Oreos." Just shoved them all in his mouth. I thought, what a guy, what a dude.
It does sound like Peter Weller just had an extremely interesting experience on this movie. It's
yo, but I mean, he's such a Peter Weller just comes across like this really cool dude. Is a bit eccentric now in his older years, you know what I mean? But also a guy you would not want to piss off.
Absolutely not.
Just like, okay, Peter, I'll do as I'm told.
And I hadn't realised what a world class ladies man he was as well. But apparently there was a different woman in his trailer every day.
Yeah. What do you think of Buckaroo Banzai?
Oh, I think it's great. Yeah.
I think it's great, dude.
It's not. I mean, it's never going to appear in my favourite movies list, but I didn't see it till about 10 years ago or something. I did really enjoy it.
I saw it in the mid 2000s, and because of all the talk, because obviously this is the that role in Buckaroo Banzai got him this job, I think. But I think they were impressed by his performance, and I always thought the concept of Buckaroo Banzai was great. But I thought the execution was awful. I hated the movie, and I just love the best part of the movie is the ending when they all walk in a line like a music video. It's so fucking cool. But there's one big blunder in that sequence where my girlfriend had pointed it out. Like, you see on the wall, it says Buckaroo Banzai sprayed on in like paint, but someone had written it before, but it was too small, so they painted over it and redid it. It's like, fuck that up.
I mean, at the end of the day, the tone is so weird and unique that I can easily understand someone not responding to it. But
well, they said no one knew how to market the film. They even had to ask the cast, including Peter, how do we market this film? He's like, oh, I don't know.
You don't really.
But the writer of that, he wrote Big Trouble in Little China, which is superb. So I think it's just kind of odd one for him. Very clever shot there. Shoot low, look up. Give him scale, height, even though he's not that tall, really. Oh, we see there, when he walked through the door, he came to the end and turned right and stopped.
Yeah.
It looks like he was going to go through another door, but he kind of stood there for too long.
I've always noticed that as well. It's funny that how often you see that in movies when... There's a bit in Star Wars as well, in A New Hope, that when you watch R2-D2 in the canyon on Tatooine at the very beginning, and there's a small stretch of smooth surface, and all around him is rock. And you cut to him at one end of the smooth bit, and he's trundling along, and then you cut away just before he gets to the rock. And so.
Yeah. Oh, some lovely neon again. Oh, a bit neon. I think in this movie, even like visual effects wise, it's pretty consistent. I mean, we've got a bit we'll get to at the end when Ronnie Cox falls out the window, but you've got wonderful matte paintings. You know, obviously the famous OCP building is the real place, but obviously it's not that tall. I think it's a council, isn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, so it's the mayoral building, I think, in Dallas.
Yeah. But there's matte paintings there. How they've extended everything. It's wonderful. And I think the guy said they're most disappointed there was the tracking device. They just didn't like that. They felt it was too basic.
I was just going to say there are a lot of visual effects in this, and the mats are all great. I think there's a couple that I think quite famously don't really work, especially the fall out the window at the end. But yeah, I love the matte work in this.
I was because recently the RoboCop video game that came out on the new consoles, you can actually walk around OCP building. It was just like, as a fan, it was like such a joy to walk around these places you're very familiar with. Like, oh my god, you better take me in.
What?
The classified of directive,
And I think you can believe that were this to happen today, a company able to produce a machine like this for use in this way, you can really easily believe now that it would have this piece of programming.
Yeah, because someone who is a senior management could have one input into its design, and if it was someone who was like a machine that was designed to stop crime, well, it can't come after me. So I just, at this moment here, because at the moment we've forgotten about Ed 209, haven't we?
Mm.
And then his introduction, like, walks in, it's like the sound effect it makes, and the lights go on, and it just kind of works. Obviously, the black velvet there, when he's got on his arm,
I just noticed that.
Bugs me as when I saw it in HD. I was like, oh, it looks a bit cheaper now, and all the hands look super rubbery, don't they? He's got on.
It kind of looks like he's sweating as well.
Oh, I'm not surprised, mate. Look at that. Oh. End of level boss.
That model was like 10 inches tall or something as well. I was always surprised by how small it was.
I think they do have VistaVision plates, I think, that will play the footage incorporated with the 209, I think.
Yeah. So I think they used that. Oh God, I'm not an expert on physical effects, but I think they used that whole 45-degree silvered mirror trick, didn't they? A lot.
Mm.
Uh-oh.
This is obviously the first time we get to see his eye.
Yeah. Nice little zoom in for a close-up.
Yeah. And so a lot of the imagery as a kid of RoboCop I saw was when he was like battered up like this. I saw this quite a lot in like the magazines and so forth. I think, I was always kind of end up being kind of familiar with that look. I love the little bit of wire you can see here as the rocket fires across. You kind of see,
I'm glad they haven't removed it from later releases.
No. It's obvious here, this bit, I think, it's coming up.
Yeah, there's
there we go.
Yeah. And the bit with the fall down the steps as well, with the foot wobbling, which is coming up any second now, that always looked a bit fishy to me. But again, it's
adding character, isn't it, to Ed 209?
Yeah, the actual idea to have it do that is genius, absolute genius. It's like when he's blown up later on as well, and the toe kind of starts flapping uncontrollably.
That's right, yeah. But also when he falls down, he acts like a frustrated child, doesn't he? It sounds like it's a pig, isn't it? It's a pig sound.
Yeah. Talk about a design flaw. So, I mean, fine, he can't go downstairs. That's one thing, but he can't get up if he falls on his back. But as Dick Jones says, who cares whether they work or not?
Exactly. Yeah, it's that kind of what's they call it? That inbuilt problem, with like things aren't supposed to last for long now. I can't remember what it's called.
Not redundancy. I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like you find yourself like your TV gets shit after a while, starts being slow, like or your phone does. It's kind of inbuilt to sort of you need to upgrade it. You know what I mean?
Like Crichton in Red Dwarf again. Yeah, built to only last a certain amount of time. Otherwise, you can't sell an upgrade or a new model.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a brilliant sequence here, isn't it? Because it's like obviously the emotion kicks in now when he's crawling for his bare life, and then Lewis comes to save him. And he's just like, "Oh yeah, you," doesn't really acknowledge it, does he? That much, till he, I suppose once he reveals his face.
Yeah, well, he's still essentially emotionless at this point, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Aside from his, the memories he has of his family.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful line, isn't it? I can feel them, but I can't. I can feel them, but I can't remember them. It's that kind of like an itch inside you can't get rid of, or can't, an itch you can't scratch.
Again, the way this is shot does such a good job of making you sympathise with him. He's on the floor with him between you and this approaching army of black-clad military types. That's another thing that's kind of prescient, the militarisation of the police force.
Yep. They're just going to do what they're told, aren't they? Not going to sort of question what they're doing because as the cops turned up, the ones who aren't controlled, well, they're still part of OCP, right? But they don't seem to want to follow.
Oh, I remember reading something about that. Yeah, it was often considered a plot hole that he's able to escape like this. That there isn't another unit of police sent after, and I think they are meant to be police. And the reason that no more are sent after is because the strike has begun. So Dick Jones can't, he hasn't got access to the police.
That's what, because Anne Lewis also mentions, like, she comes in, the police are on strike, Because that theme would run into the sequel, wouldn't it? The police again would be on strike.
Yeah.
And then they go and strike again. There's a lot of striking, isn't there? It's a whole battle of the unions versus the corporations, And it's like that whole debate of the 80s as well, where the unions were getting, screwed over by these kind of big corporate takeovers or sort of, guys on Wall Street sort of, buying stock and then it's basically, destroying the companies and selling them off.
I love that sweatshirt. That's a great little trailer advert that as well with the dinosaur. It's a Kyoto Brothers creation, isn't it? Speaking of South Park and Trey Parker and Matt Stone, I think they did their puppet work in Team America, didn't they?
That's right.
And is it the Gremlins or the Critters? I can't remember. They did one or the other.
Can't remember. I mean, this like these news events are just. It also feels a little bit like Brass Eye.
Yeah,
they're kind of crazy events where people just being wiped out by this kind of laser from the sky by mistake.
I remember thinking that when Brass Eye came on the TV in what must have been the early 90s.
In 94 or something like that.
Yeah, it was. I remember.
Maybe that was the day-to-day, perhaps.
But I associated it with this. I immediately thought of these Paul Verhoeven fake adverts.
And we get to see his actual wife, don't we? Kurt's
of course,
wife.
Yeah. She plays the secretary, doesn't she?
Yeah.
I always think he seems a bit too chipper, considering what he's just been through.
I know.
What he's been through being several plate glass windows.
A bit too many, so it becomes a little bit National Lampoons or something,
They always claim that those glass windows he gets thrown through in that scene a minute ago were real glass. I've seen that claim made in a couple of places, but I can't believe it.
Maybe this is a slightly thicker than usual kind of fake glass, maybe. I don't know. But no way it would have been thrown through real glass. That would have hurt like hell.
I know stuntmen do have a thing about sugar glass being kind of unreliable and not as safe as everyone thinks it is, but it's got to be better than real glass, surely.
Oh, for sure.
Look at my face, Dick.
I do love that bit though when he plays back the message. It's Dick Jones. He's like he's screaming at him, you know.
Also, I mean, this guy is being reported about on the news as the underworld boss of old Detroit.
And he strolls around.
Just strolls in and out.
You know?
So, is he wanted by the police? Is there and does no one at OCP mind that their senior vice president is hanging around with the crime boss?
Yeah, but also he had such a when RoboCop checked his crime sheet, he should still be in prison, right? You know?
I guess there's all kinds of levels of corruption going on that have allowed him this freedom.
I did like how he called him Richard then instead of Dick. You know, I got a slight little comment on being shown some respect. I suppose it's early prototype iPhone there. You know.
Yeah, it's a GPS, isn't it? Really, yeah, it's a little GPS system. They were never happy with it, were they? Because I think it was made by the props department rather than an actual.
Yeah, I think it was a last minute thing. I think they sort of cobbled together. I think.
And he's relegated to the bad guys' underground world now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of he's returned to where he died. You know, unknowingly, maybe I don't know. It's just, maybe it's an excuse to use the same location. You know, did you get the gun? It's like he's kind of adjusting his knee.
Yeah, sure. I just wandered in there, picked it up, and left. Yeah, fine. There's no security or anything.
Must have been left on the floor then, right at the OCP. Then,
yeah,
right? He dropped it at OCP. I mean, I think Dick Jones would have picked that up. I got me a new gun.
Unless it's a secondary gun from back at the station, in which case it would probably also be under some sort of lock and key, you'd think. But
yeah,
that's not the biggest gaff in the movie, though, because that's coming up, isn't it? Do you remember this?
Oh yeah. Well, the jaw piece disappears and the neck bit as well.
But did you notice that watching it
as a kid? Oh, I was obsessed with it as a kid.
Oh, really? I never noticed.
How did that go away? Because I think it might be on RoboCop Archive YouTube channel where they sort of done a video to sort of show you the different versions of RoboCop from the films and TV shows, where how they'd often remove it. Some episodes, I think the show would have the jaw piece attached to the helmet when it comes off, but it doesn't really explain this part, the neck bit. I always thought as a kid it would just like a shutter go down,
yeah,
as he removes that bit, but it still doesn't explain why the jaw piece, where does that go? It's still not attached to the helmet.
Yeah,
but this was horrifying as a kid seeing this. It's fascinating, but also gross at the same time. You know, it's some of the finest makeup I'd seen.
Oh,
I think
it's so good, isn't it?
It still holds up. It's incredible. That's like the oily sort of like stuff around the neck. You know what I mean? To keep the joints all like greased up and stuff. It's all there. I mean, it's a cyborg, right? I mean, he have this kind of Terminator face underneath that, right? With the part of the brain still there and the skin molded on.
Yeah, I mean, look, another thing I thought about was fine, he's bulletproof, but that jaw is entirely vulnerable.
Yeah,
but I guess if he does have some sort of metal endoskeleton or whatever underneath the skin, then. But either way, throughout that entire barrage of bullets on the way out of OCP, not one of them caught him in the chin.
No, but you see kind of one shot where he puts his hands up to cover his face.
Oh, that's
right?
true. Yeah,
yeah, but that's maybe the only way to sort of visualize that he had protected his face. But yeah, I mean, it's always like once that mask is off, boom. Oh, again, this explosion coming up here is just ginormous, which kind of shattered all the other windows the opposite side. You know,
didn't it injure Ray Wise or something as well, and Kurtwood Smith?
Yeah, I think they kind of deafened them as well. I don't know. They were so close to the explosions. You know,
I love that as I smashes the window to turn the volume up because he's trying to watch his telly.
Yeah,
that was Nancy Allen's first day on set, wasn't it? When they were shooting this sitcom thing, so she just turned up and was like, "What the hell have I got involved in here?"
It's like a really kind of grubby version of a Carry On, isn't it? You know,
it's described on somewhere I was reading as America's version of Benny Hill.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you can kind of see that, can't you?
It's
He's a
kind of
disc jockey, right? This guy. I can't remember if he was.
Yeah, I think in real life he was, and there's an extra. I think famously, there was another segment of like commercials and news footage right at the end of the movie after
Yes,
the
that's
final
right.
line, and in that it's revealed that he's been caught with underage girls.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of a bit like you need to. Yeah, I don't think it'd be wise to end a film like that.
That really didn't make a lot of point, did it?
No, and also it's supposed to end with as well Anne Lewis in hospital, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that was part of it. Yeah, I think that was like news coverage of her in hospital.
Yeah, commercial and news coverage, right? But yeah, and when the way it ends, how it does in the movie is absolutely perfect.
Beyond perfect. It ends like a Hong Kong ninja movie. It's right. Story's finished. Done. That's it.
Well, I was watching Vertigo recently. I mean, it's a wonderful 4K remaster they've done, but at the end, it just ends so abruptly. Like she falls off the church tower or whatever. He's like, no! It just goes end credits. It's like, oh.
Proper movies end when they need to end. They don't.
And those end credits were short back then.
Yeah.
Great.
Just because no one got a credit, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's like a war memorial of credits, you know.
That's a real gun as well. I do like. I must admit, I like my guns. I'm quite happy to live in a country in which they aren't freely available. But my favourite thing about going to America is finding somewhere I can shoot a gun, and that's an incredible. It's a Barrett M80, which is a 50 cal. It's basically designed to shoot engines and tanks and stuff like that. You can use it as a really long range sniper, or you can just penetrate metal with it.
This next time you go out there, Rob, so go up to the guys who are, you know, where you can shoot guns and stuff. Go, do you have any state of the art bang bangs?
A plasma rifle.
Plasma rifle, yeah. The 40-watt range, you know. That's what you see, pal. It's like,
Weirdly, the last time I did this, I was in Florida on holiday a couple of years ago, and I went to a shooting range because I'd read that they advertised Uzis. So I'm going to go and find me an Uzi. And the guy who ran it used to live in the next street to me in Camden in North London.
no.
It was really weird.
What a small world,
Yeah.
eh? It's crazy. So once you figured that out, did he let you sort of, you know, have a few more rounds for free or something?
He didn't,
you
but
know?
he did leave me on my own in his shooting range, not with the Uzi, but with a Beretta 9mm, and I did the full roly polies, jumping up, hiding down. Oh, the works, man! It's fantastic.
I would have loved to see that, Rob. I would have joined in with you as well. I shot you first. I got body armor. It's like playing army again. But actually, end up killing each other. See, I say he gets the baby food, right? Which ends up looking like poo, you know, when it comes out, you know, when he goes, tastes like baby food. We don't actually see him eat it, which is a shame. Because this said, isn't it, is keep his skin, like, alive, as it were, you know?
Yeah, the organic part of it, and I suppose I don't know if there's meant to be any kind of symbolism there, whether he's supposed to be.
Does he get other baby food, like rusks or something? I don't know. They should have brought out that would be a great product to sell, wouldn't it? You know, because they were so desperate to sell to kids. Baby food, RoboCop baby food.
Or just as a promotional thing at screenings, you could give it away to people. That's a great idea.
This is the part here where it's the famous kind of, as we learned from RoboDoc, was the Oreos sequence.
Uh-huh.
It's around this point here, you know. It'd be so good though if there was one bit left in the film we saw he had a little bit of a chocolate Oreo in his teeth. Everyone spent years, you know, debating what was that, and it was Oreos, you know. But Peter denies it, of course, doesn't he? Because you're full of shit, man.
Yeah,
about
of
the
course he
story.
does. That doesn't fit with it. He seems unbelievably cool, and I love the guy, but he also comes across as a little bit image conscious. So, like he wants to be seen a certain way. He wants to be seen as dead cool, and
Oh yeah. He's he's Doctor Peter Weller, isn't he? So he's got a doctorate in I think Renaissance art, perhaps.
That makes a lot of sense because he's a bit of a Renaissance man, isn't he? He's a jazz musician, and he's always chosen weird movies, weird roles. It's not when you look at his CV, considering how well known and well recognised he is, he's not actually been in that many particularly popular movies.
There's a lot of action schlock he's been in. Yeah, I've seen those pop up. I'm like, he was in that. This is RoboCop. What's going on?
Yeah, he's done a string of Die Hard knockoffs as well. For some reason, he was typecast as that for a while. There's one called Diplomatic Siege, and he spends half the film with a towel on his head, and you just know that was his idea. It was just so obvious.
There's a great photo online of Peter Weller, Carrie Fisher, and Christopher Reeve all in one shot. It was always quite cool.
Oh, wow. Princess Leia, Superman, and RoboCop.
Yeah, icons of the 80s. Oh, there's so many... Right, did you always have this debate, can RoboCop run? Because he's dodged out of the way and he moved quite quickly there. And was like, can he run? It's like, well, he can... I suppose you can do a brisk paced jog like a dad looking for his car in a car park or something,
It's only one or two steps, isn't it? I think they sell it. It does... I'm aware of the question, and it does raise an issue. But I think they sell it.
Can RoboCop jump? My friend Stuart is always like, he can't jump because he jumps in the video games. He can't jump.
The third one, he flies, for Christ's sake.
But he's not jumping though, is he? Maybe it's a hop, skip, and off he goes. I mean, the moment coming up here where the hubcap flies off was, something they didn't expect, and it flies past camera in the most perfect way.
Even if you planned for it, you'd never be able to frame it like that, would you?
That's nuts, isn't it? I love this bit here. Get away from me, man!
He sells it brilliant. Ray Wise is just perfect in this ride. I didn't really notice him much as a kid, but now he's got such a great sort of, not tongue in his cheek performance, but it's not entirely serious, and it fits perfectly. Makes the character bigger than the lines allow him to be. Yeah,
for sure. Oh, this bit's so gross, though, isn't it? Yeah, it's all like greed and stuff.
It's like days and days of leftover catering, I think, apparently anyway, that's all chucked in a bucket and allowed to go rotten, and then a load of dye thrown in it.
That's disgusting. Oh, poor Lewis, she gets proper gunned down, doesn't she?
That's a good shot. Bye, baby.
Clarence. Obviously, it's supposed to be this, the symbolism, isn't it, of coming into play of Jesus walking on water.
We've had the crucifixion. We've had the resurrection.
Yeah. Also, it's a bit in the ITV cut, whatever it is, the cut down version where he calls him a blugger. Yeah, you blugger.
It's airhead. Every time I hear someone use the word airhead in like a kids' TV show or something, it always makes me think of back in the day when movies were censored on TV.
I love how the guy's completely unaware of Anne Lewis, though, when he gets... He goes, I got him, Clarence! I got him! Boom! He just gets shot to bits. Great explosion as well. It's dragging it out.
I like Verhoeven's take on, like, he's obviously meant to be Jesus, because Verhoeven's obsessed with Jesus, isn't he? Not Christianity, but Jesus as an historical figure. And he really liked the idea of American Jesus being armed and, being quite happy to shoot and kill someone.
Yeah, for sure. This is also like when he hits... Well, I suppose he's kind of robotic heart, or maybe he's real heart. I don't know. Just like, and he screams.
It's really quite disturbing as a child for me, this whole sequence, because he's not moving right as well. He's obviously got a few short circuits and...
Yeah. Neck. That sort of sound effect it makes. But when you see that, obviously the extended scenes, like the grading is like... It's come from a different element. It's not. I don't think it's from the original 35mm source, maybe, or maybe it's like into positive or whatever. I don't know. It never looked quite as good.
It's really noticeable there. I hadn't noticed in the other bits, but that shot of the blood spurting out is incredibly grainy and lower definition.
Yeah, it looks like it's like you're taking a 16mm element and blowing up to 35, perhaps. And maybe they haven't been able to find a better source for it.
Or haven't wanted to pay for it.
Yeah, look at that mat. That's amazing, isn't it?
And again, daylight.
Yeah. I love the sound effect as well of RoboCop now, because he's a bit more like mechanically kind of a bit fucked up a little bit, and he's obviously heavily damaged, but it's just they've added a little bit more sound effects to him now.
Beautiful shot, that the way the camera zooms in all in one go.
Yeah. And I have the sort of sound effect as well. It's like the gun loads and he loads at the same time, and it goes boom, and takes them out. I think they add optical effect, don't they? An extra explosion.
Yeah, because this is the I can't remember what they call it. It's not the town hall, but it's like a municipal mayoral office, and they wouldn't let them have a huge explosion.
On the back of the VHS cover was always this shot where he's walking into the building. I remember that.
I love the little spinny bit on top.
Yeah, and he has a little bit of the foot, as you mentioned, the twitch. A bit of comedy.
This corporation will live up to the guiding principles of its founder. Courage, strength, conviction.
And obviously as a sound effect when he opens the door, it's like "Brow," kind of thing,
Now, what I've always wondered is why there is still a gun in this boardroom.
Yes, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just. I think it's there. It was there originally, obviously, to show as an example for the demonstration.
Well, presumably that's what you assume in the first scene, but this must be weeks later, if not certainly many days later. So I just kind of like the idea that in Verhoeven's mind, all American boardrooms have a Desert Eagle armed and ready to go, just sitting there on a podium. Yeah, you're fucked, mate.
Because I remember, because the old man, he must know that he has there's a directive there that he can't do anything, so he has to tell him he's fired.
Yeah,
because he must have, because he maybe he's he knows, because RoboCop's standing there waiting, but he can't do anything. I want a chopper now. It's like, I want SUX now.
in my mind, this is how Dan O'Hurley would have reacted in real life if someone had taken him at gunpoint. He would have been that cool.
And RoboCop, I love how Peter Weller delivers that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll see, because this is the basically they used the wrong lens on this shot.
Yeah.
Which gives you that kind of weird fish-eyed, kind of like arms look too long. You know what I mean? Like that's about it. Everything else is really cool. And also, RoboCop has a nice hum, doesn't he? It always has a humming sound throughout the sound mix, which they then removed for the sequels.
Oh, I didn't notice they removed it, actually. I've only seen the second and third ones a couple of times each. There we go. Murphy.
Oh.
And that's, like I say, that's how you end a movie. I can't bear the 10 minutes of sitting around making light-hearted bantering afterwards.
Trying to wrap things up.
And then a mid-credits scene, and then a post-credits scene. Story's finished, end. Yeah.
Well, we've got a lot. The Marvel films have a lot to, explain. Actually, Masters of the Universe did the end credit. Well, the scene right at the end of the credits where Skeletor comes up and goes, "I'll be back."
Yeah, well, that's so stupid. It's funny though. That's all right.
Yeah. But now it's become the norms. Every superhero film, when they don't do it, everyone sits to the very end and goes, "Oh, there's no other footage." And your bladder's just been suffering for the last 10 minutes. But yeah, this film is still absolutely perfect. Love it. It'll never, in my eyes, date. It still looks great. It's bar from Ronnie Cox's massive arms. But it's like, even though we saw there's more bad RoboCop than good, right? Because the sequels, TV shows, right? But even as a teenager, a child, whatever, when that ended, you would desperately want a sequel. You want more RoboCop.
Oh yeah. That's a character that has all the potential. I mean, you could do anything with that character.
Yeah. But also, it's shown that they didn't have the creativity to do much with the character. You know what I mean? It's like, and they forget about his humanity, don't they? They sort of reset him to a certain degree. Where at the end, he's once he removes that helmet, as Peter Weller always said, he softens the voice. He's no longer very assertive. He's very much like,
Exactly.
like a natural voice.
I feel like that scene, that final boardroom scene, is it RoboCop is a different character then. The whole stuff in the industrial works is all heightened and action and so on. So, but when he turns up there, he just has a different vibe, and it's like he's found himself, and this is who he is now. And Peter Weller communicates that just in a few lines of dialogue is extremely good work, frankly.
Oh, definitely. It's really hard to compete with this, and the idea of as we saw with the remakes, like it's a film that didn't need to be remade, and for a film that again has a series that has more bad stuff than good, the fan base is still incredibly strong for this film. If I share anything about RoboCop like on Facebook or something, it just goes mad views, like just a clip from RoboCop, like a TV spot.
Yeah,
thousands upon thousands of views. People just love RoboCop.
It feels like that's something that's grown over time as well. Unlike most of these, everyone's favourite 80s or even early 90s genre movies, it didn't feel to me back at the time that it was anywhere near as popular as a movie like Aliens, or for an obvious comparison, or certainly not Star Wars or even Rambo, things like that. But now it's the subject of that incredible, nearly 5-hour-long documentary. One thing we didn't mention was what's it called, our RoboCop remake. Which is a hugely popular thing. It's got it's been viewed by any number of people, and it feels like that's kind of grown over time. It's got better with age.
I suppose adults at the time, or teenagers who saw RoboCop and then got older, they probably saw RoboCop sort of lean more towards children with the toys and TV show and video games, and probably thought, he kind of like moved on from that. But everyone always in the back of their mind, RoboCop, the first film, was a brilliant film. But I think down to the way how the internet works now and how people have realised more people around the world love RoboCop and can't stop talking about RoboCop. It's sort of kept the legacy and the IP alive and valuable, because there's so many people now, or companies, licensing RoboCop stuff to sell another RoboCop toy or expensive kind of model or statue of RoboCop. It's every 6 months there's something new coming out. Despite no new film, there's still new toys or merchandise coming out related to RoboCop. It just shows you that people who grew up with it are still obsessed with it, and it shows you that the themes and the ideas in the film have not dated or seem cliche in any way. They just seem fresh.
Not at all. And maybe it's taken a while for those themes because they are difficult to get your head. This was not a normal movie to
as a child
to
you didn't
deal
notice
satirically like this. Exactly. Yeah, it's not something you appreciated. So maybe it's just people have just developed a better understanding of it the longer it's been around, and the more, because at the end of the day, movies today are more likely to have these kind of themes, but then it wasn't necessarily that popular, that common, and yeah.
I just realised the end credits move very slowly. When I watched RoboCop 3 not long ago, the end credits for that film are way too slow. It's sort of dragging out the length to sort of fit a certain runtime, but yeah.
Just emphasising the embarrassment of all the people involved. I hate that film.
Well, Rob, you're going to have to watch it again soon, so, but I think we can't also be coming to the end of the end credits now, but I think for the next commentary we do, it will be Aliens. That will be the next one to tackle.
Kool and the Gang.
Exactly. I never actually got to see the RoboCop ride, though. Did you ever hear about that, the RoboCop ride?
No, not really.
I think my friend said it was like Granada Studios or something, maybe there, but it's kind of RoboCop on like a flying bike, like a ride. You sit in a chair, the chair just moves around and stuff. And he said it was absolute shit.
I don't want to go on a British theme park ride based on a blockbuster movie. You know what that's going to be like.
Well, everyone, that's the end of the commentary. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, me and Rob will be back with another commentary soon, and it will be on Aliens. So look out for that very soon. Okay, everyone, take care of yourselves, and goodbye for now.
Goodbye.